Hello, and welcome to the Physical Therapy Owners Club podcast. I am back in the closet, not on the beach anymore. Don't have the virtual background anymore, but I'm excited to bring on Dr. Joe Simon. He is a physical therapy owner in New York, and he's been through issues like this in the past. For example, he's been a private practice owner since 2005, and he not only survived the 2008 recession, but even expanded during that time. And in 2012, during Hurricane Sandy, he actually lost one of his clinics and his home. So yet again, he pushed forward and grew his clinics. And during this time, other practitioners took notice and asked for his guidance, coaching, and consulting, which eventually resulted in founding the Private Practice Business Academy. So Dr. Joe is currently owner and partner in multiple out-of-network medical and wellness clinics. He's doing video marketing, leadership training companies, merging and acquiring other clinics. He's doing a ton right now, but I'm excited to bring him on simply because of that. He's been through some of these pretty major issues with his clinic in the past. And so he comes from a point of experience. We had Jamie Schreier on earlier. His clinic actually burned down. And came back from that. Joe's been through this a couple of times now, it seems. And so I'm excited to bring not only his story, but also his advice and his recommendation to other clinic owners. And I'm saying all that, and I didn't even say thanks for coming on, Joe. Thanks for coming, man.
No worries, Nathan. Look, you know what? And I'm so grateful to be on. It's good. And if the audience sees me glance over here, because I'm on LinkedIn at the same time, so I'm kind of doing both. But
cool.
I've run podcasts for so many years, and I stopped doing it for about a year, as you know.
Yeah.
And I miss it, but I can see, it's just getting back into it again. And I'm like, it's just excited to be back on and connecting with good people. So I'm excited. When you asked me, like, hey, dude, you want to jump on? And I'm like, of course, man. And obviously Nathan's been on my show in the past. It was a quick one. We did in person,
That's right.
Down and dirty. We just had the mic and a phone, and we did it,
And we had a great conversation, man. We just kind of riffed for about 20 minutes or so, and it was easy. And you shared a ton of great wisdom and asked some great questions. And I think we were really on the same page as far as what business owners need to do. What was the name of your podcast if people wanted to check it out?
The original one was the Private Practice Business Academy.
Okay.
And I ran that for about 2 years. That stopped in probably the beginning of 2018. That one stopped.
Oh, okay.
Then I started a new one called the 30 and 30. And it was just all marketing. So all the marketing guys that I've met over the years have become good friends. And I'm like, hey, can you just jump on the show and just share some knowledge? And It was just a fun show to do. So I think you were on the 30 and 30 because it was good, because there's a lot of just owners on that show, and but it's everyone. So it's not just PT. So we had people like dentists and psychiatrists, and even today I still have people, podiatrists, and everyone that reaches out and still talks about, hey, what would you do right now? What's your next move? What's your next move? Right.
Well, well, speaking of that, do you want to share some of your story first, or do you want to just get into it, say, here's my next move?
Well, I'll give them the background. And I think the background so you're not getting it from up on high, right? I've been through the downs and the ups and the cuts and bruises, but the biggest cut, I got to say, it wasn't even the financial crisis. It was the 2012, New York got hit with Hurricane Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Hurricane Sandy, look, we're Northeast. We don't get hurricanes. It doesn't really happen to us, right? So it's just like having a snowfall in Florida, right? You'd shut Florida down. But this hurricane, actually, it wasn't the storm. It was just the surge, the water that came up. So it flooded lower Manhattan. So it destroyed almost all of lower Manhattan, where I had one of my clinics. So that clinic was gone, completely gone. And you think that's bad. But then I also had my apartment, which was a condo, which was right on the water, and it was right on the water, beautiful. I just had it for about, a couple of years. So my wife, I had a small child at the time. And it was the same thing. Like the water came in through the front door, went out the back, and then brought the outside patio furniture back in to the living room. So when I came back 2 days later, I was like, hey, look, my furniture didn't move. Oh, wait, that's my patio furniture.
Oh, man.
So with that, obviously, clinics are shut down. I still had staff to pay. No bailouts. There was nothing even coming anywhere near that at the time. So, I'm pulling every credit card I got. So, all right,
Oh,
look,
wow.
let's see how many, can I get a credit line here? I was about 150 in the hole. That's how deep I got, right? Because I was like, all right, we were just losing money left and right. And I said to myself, I was telling my wife one night, I said, listen, this is going to be the last ditch effort here. And she's like, well, look, we live, happen, and, oh, there we go. And get the little notices on the thing. So, in marketing, they have a saying, if you have $2 left, you put $1 towards marketing. So I said, hey, listen, we're going to give this a shot. We got $2 left. Let's put the $1 towards marketing. So I did something very stupid. I didn't believe in myself, right? I didn't believe in myself, and I hired a marketing company. And I said, they probably know better than me. Let me hire a marketing company. So I hired a marketing company. They were running at about $5,000 a month. I didn't have $5,000 a month. I signed a contract for 6 months without a dime to my name. I was actually in the hole, but I was like, hey, if they can fix it, it'll be great. But I also had an intern that worked for me that she was just like, hey, listen, I need the money. And I felt really bad. I'm like, all right, look, I can give you some hours if you can help me with my marketing. I said, all the stuff that I know, I'm going to translate it to you. I'm going to teach you how to do this stuff. You're just going to implement it. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to hand everything. You just got to implement it. So first month goes by, marketing company, 0. She gets 6 leads, 6 patients. So I'm like, oh, we got 6 patients. All right, not life-changing, but we got 6 people. Huge. Wow. So I'm like, oh, 6 people. All right. So long story short, in the end of 3 months, marketing company came back with a goose egg. Marketing intern comes back with 90 new patients.
What?
Yeah, because everyone else was basically had their head in the sand, or they were frozen. They were like, oh, look, we're damaged, we're out of work, we don't know what to do. And we were just grinding. We were just like, let's go. Let's talk to everybody we can. Let's put out the information. Let's educate as much and show people we're still around. And we just did that. So 3 months came back with 90 new clients, right? So that was pretty cool. The funny thing was the marketing company tried to sue me because I didn't want to pay them for the last 3 months.
Of course.
I'm like, but you got zero results. I'm like, I have a $15 an hour employee that generated 90 clients in 3 months compared to you that took 15,000 from me and generated nothing.
Wow.
They ended up, I paid them the 4th month and we decided we call it quits. So,
oh my gosh.
But here's the fun part about that whole thing. All of the docs, all of the community or everyone that I was networking with and seeing that we were the only ones open. They were like, you're still seeing patients. Like, how are you doing this? So that was the first time I got attention from a doctor looking at me instead of the other way. Because back in the day, back then, PTs had to, knock on doors and say, hey, can you refer a patient to me? This is the first time doctors were saying to me, hey, what are you doing? How are you doing that? So back then I was like, yeah, I'll show you. These are just simple stuff. And back then it was, we were doing basic, what was Google ads back then, which was nothing, right? Yeah, but we were also doing mailers. We were doing postcard mailers. We were kind of mimicking what the dental industry did, but we just changed the wording of it. And the messaging is what I learned was so important back then. And I kind of lent it. I shared it to those guys. And they started to say, hey, look, we can use your, and, obviously they were getting good results from it. They were like, we want to do more of this. And back then, that's when I started the Private Practice Business Academy, because I said, hey, if I'm doing something so different, while everyone's going this way and they're going that way, and I can help people, why don't we make this into something? Why don't we all kind of go together and we can go? And look, I have a passion for marketing. I have a passion for sales. So that for me was just an easy outlet for me to really go and ramp up. And podcast was born and all that. We skyrocketed from there back then.
That's awesome. And so are you doing marketing now for healthcare professionals across different industries at this time?
I think we had a conversation. I used to coach and consult. I actually retired my coaching and consulting business at the beginning of 2019. I actually said, you know what, I'm going to take a year off. I was done with it. I was like, I did that part. It was like one of those pieces in my life that I said, you know what, I did it. I ran it from 2012 to 2019. I said, I met great people. I said, I had a lot of great clients. We mentioned Jamie, who's a good friend. I said, hey, look, he's a great coach. You guys should go to him. He's going to go. If they did, they did. If they didn't, I didn't pressure anybody. I said, but this is the flip side of what happened. A lot of them said, hey, listen, we know you have a great way of managing people. You have a great way of bringing our culture and our business together. How can we work together? So some of my clients, we merged together. We formed a partnership and we moved forward. Some of the clients said, hey, you know what, Joe, you taught me a lot. I can do it myself. And with my blessings, they were good to go. They don't need anything else. They were like, hey, I'm good. And there's so many other consultants in marketing in general now, right? So that's the good news.
Is that some of the work that you're doing now then is marketing behalf, not just yourself, but other people?
We're only doing in-house now. So all my partners, so it's basically all my partners and my own clinics. We're doing basically all in-house. So as I mentioned earlier, we do have a video marketing company, but you're like, man, I'm jealous of that. I'm like, totally jealous. Yeah, I've learned the hard way not to outsource everything. So we have that in-house, and that's actually helping all of my partners and obviously our own clinics, because that's what you have to put out these days. That's the big change. Everything's video, right?
Yeah. So dude, you're not only in the case of Hurricane Sandy, but now with the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, you're ground zero. Downtown New York City. Tell us, how are you surviving? How are you getting patients at this time? How are you staying afloat?
So I only have one clinic left, and my main clinic is in Midtown Manhattan. It's still there to this day. The other clinics are in other states, New Jersey as well. So New Jersey, but Manhattan is the only one. We have 0 in-person physical therapy visits. Absolutely. Really? Because here's the thing with Manhattan. It's either you commute into the city from the outer boroughs, right? So no one's doing that anymore. If you have some money, you left. you said, hey, I'm out of here. I'm going to Florida. I'm going to Long Island. I'm going to go to Connecticut. I'm going to go to the other states, going to go to my summer house. So they left. So our target audience kind of just disappeared. Now, here's the other thing. All the companies said, hey, we're going to require our employees to work from home. So the younger population that we work with, and this is the truth for those that aren't from New York, the majority of people are not from New York. I was born and raised here, but the majority of people, they graduate college. They say, hey, I want to go live in New York. They get a job at a big advertising company, and they come and work here. Now, let's say Gina that works in like a McCann Erickson or a McKinsey, she's originally from Colorado. So the company says, hey, work from home. Well, she's not going to live in her apartment with her 2 roommates and a dog. She's like, I'm going to go home to mom. So she flies back. So she's gone. She's not even in New York. So we literally have 0 in-person physical therapy visits for the clinic.
You've gone all telehealth.
Yeah, all telehealth. So let me tell you what we did. And I don't know if I was right or wrong, but I'm seeing that I was right. So before the shutdown happened, we were getting a lot of flack. We were hearing it from everywhere, right? We had a lot of things on the news. We had everything. So I made an executive decision. I said, we're going to shut all of our clinics down. Before anybody said it, let's shut down for 2 weeks. 2 things. I want the staff to feel safe. The staff was feeling a little bit jittery, right? So I said, you know what, guys, we'll shut down for 2 weeks. I was naive enough to believe that it would be gone in 2 weeks. Like, oh yeah, we're going to be shut down for 2 weeks. It'll go away. We'll be back by April 1st. We're awesome, guys. Don't worry. Yeah, clearly that didn't work out the way we wanted. So we closed the last 2 weeks of March. We opened the first week in April. But the 2 weeks we were closed for patients. So we spent that time training our staff. But we trained on what would happen. And so this is a risk analysis I do with a lot of my my former clients. I still do it to this day with my partners. I put a risk analysis on the board. I said, okay, guys, what if worst case scenario, it doesn't open? What if the president says it's not going to open to July, August? What if that happens? So I put that risk analysis on the board, and I said, what do we do? So then it was me and my leadership team. We sat down and we went through the analysis, and we looked at all the worst case senios. And to be honest, the majority of those worst case scenarios came true.
Did they really?
So, oh my God, like we were thinking this is the absolute worst case. I'm going to shut down. I'm going to quarantine us. We'll never be able to leave. We were making that up. We didn't believe that. We were basing it off of what they did in Italy. And we're like, oh, that'll never happen here, right? That won't happen. Clearly, it happened. But we made the decision then is, what can we do to keep the doors open and keep our staff paid? We said it's going to be telehealth. So we consumed as much information about telehealth. Rob Vinig, who's a guy that I interviewed a long time ago on my podcast, I reached out to him, asked him a couple of questions. Awesome dude. If you're in telehealth, reach out to him. He's a very generous soul. He'll give you whatever he got. He kind of guided me through. He said, this is what telehealth is. It's not difficult, but he said something important to me. He goes, it's conversation. It's you have to make the PT feel confident in what they're doing, because a lot of PTs don't feel confident.
That's true.
And they feel like they cannot give the same treatment. and I talked to a couple of friends. They're like, "Hey, Joe, I'm a manual therapist." I'm like, "So was I back in the Stone Age, right? I was a manual therapist." But I get it. But how do you stay alive, guys? How do you stay alive? And a lot of that is, can you use your voice to explain to your client what to do? So we created a training program just for in-house. And we said, guys, can you follow this step by step? Is this something you can follow? Like how you greet somebody, what you talk about, what's the first thing you can do? How do you go through these steps? And my PTs at first were a little bit like, yeah, I guess. So we did a lot of role play. And this is before we shut down. So we did 2 weeks. Majority of them believed that we wouldn't have to do this. Yeah. They were like, there's no way we got to do this, Joe. There's no way. This is not going to happen. And I didn't believe it. I'm going to be honest with you. I was like, no, it's not going to happen. But obviously it did happen. But they had something in place. They had some type of format in place to follow. Yeah. So when they were ready to go, they were like, hey, we're good to go. I have a format now. Yeah. So the funniest thing happened, right? The first couple of ones we did, when we didn't follow the format, the patient would come on and they wouldn't schedule for the next one. They thought it was a one-off thing. Oh. So we were unable to keep the first couple we got. Mm-hmm. Then lockdown happened. And so I had to explain to them, guys, we really have to figure this out, right? Like, let's follow the format. They started following the format. Referrals happened. They were able to keep their patient. They explained to them what they're actually doing for them. So we went from our first week, we had a total of 2 telehealth patients. And by the end of this week, we have 50 telehealth patients. Wow. And that's with 2 therapists operating 3 days a week. Wow. The other 2 days a week, the new norm now is, how do we make it better? Right. Yeah. And I'll share, we're like, how do we make the experience better? How do we make this whole, how do we make this new normal better? So look, I'm going to tell you, like I've been stepping heavier on the gas pedal since day one, because as I spoke to a lot of friends, I'm like, just like in 2008, just like in 2012, marketing is what's going to save us, but it depends on what type of marketing you do. Right. So and that's kind of the key there, where some are saying, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and it's not working. But I'm like, it goes back to the messaging, as we said in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. All your messaging, and some are just getting it completely wrong. Some are just copying from others. They say, hey, I saw this guy talking about it. And I'm like, how would you speak to your current clients? Right. You just have to speak to, like, you and I just having a chat and just going along. And it's amazing when you kind of explain that to the PT, because I get it. They're not very cerebral, very, hands-on, like, hey, I get it. But when you say, hey, we just have to learn how to have a conversation, it changes the game. Yeah.
So you did a lot of training, and I've been a big proponent of that since this got started. It's an opportunity to train, to plan, to strategize. How are we going to ramp this thing back up? And it takes a lot of work and effort behind the scenes. And I've also talked to, Daniel Seidler of TelePT Solutions, and talked about telehealth as well, and how and it doesn't come normally. It's not what PTs normally do. They want to get their hands on people. They want to be in front of people, but you don't have that. How can you provide value if you're distant and you can't touch your patient? It's possible. You have to challenge your PTs to think in a different way and say, this is how it's working. This is what we do. And challenge them to say, how can I bring value to each visit, even though I can't touch them? And it's possible that you can. Daniel Seidler recommended a book called How to Be a Supple Leopard, or something like that.
Okay.
Awkward name, but it's written by a PT out of San Francisco, and it has tons of pictures and guidance on doing self-mobilizations. Okay. So how do you mobilize a joint if you can't touch them, right? And so, it goes through stuff like that. And there's ways to do it, but I guess what I want to get from you at this point, you did great in preparing for worst case scenarios, and it's probably good for people to even do that now, even though they're getting some funding here and there. But what are you doing are you getting any new patients, or let's go back in 2012, how did you get 90 new patients when you were the only one open at that time? What was your messaging, and what mediums did you use for marketing?
Yeah, but back in 2012, a little different, right? The landscape was different.
That's true.
Google Ads was probably what we started with, and it wasn't as popular. So I had an unfair advantage where I was playing online when others weren't.
Yeah.
Right. So that was one advantage. But let's remove that advantage and say, what else did we did? What else did we do at that time? And basically, a lot of it was we borrowed from the dental industry their postcard process. They were very good at sending out postcards to remind you of things.
Yeah, totally.
All we did was just remind them of, hey, by the way, we're still here. And the postcard, again, it's kind of a branding thing, but we changed it to almost a direct response where we asked them to do something immediately. So we sent a postcard out, but we said, hey, listen, if you know someone else that would appreciate our services or know somebody else that would benefit from this, you will qualify for a free session or whatever it was back then. Of course, it's 2012. I don't remember.
Yeah, make it
up. It's been a few years on that.
Fill in the blank.
So yeah, and whatever you can provide, and there's so much more that they can provide right now that it made sense. Now, did all of them work? No, but sometimes when you do a postcard, when you do the Google ads, when you do a phone call, when you do a bunch of things together and you're targeting the same person, guess what? That person's going to be like, dude, you're everywhere. You must be the best guy for this because I'm seeing you there. I'm seeing you here. I'm seeing you here. Like, you got to be the best guy for this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of the same concept what we're doing now. We're really trying to be everywhere. Obviously, the landscape has changed. We're leaning heavily into video these days, and that's everything we do. We do have, look at the advantages. We do have a video marketing company,
sure.
But if you don't have one, do it on your phone. Get down and dirty, have your phone going. And the problem is, again, I see it. I know some people, we see a lot more people doing it, but the challenge is, what are you saying that's interesting to the audience, right? To your patient.
Exactly.
And that's where we get into a big challenge, right? Because look, and some people are going to hate me for this. Standard PT is boring. And I don't want to burst anybody's bubble here, guys.
Whoa, you're going out on a limb there, man.
Yeah, it's boring, right? Like, we get it. And you're like, how do you make that sexy?
Yeah.
You don't. Like, you can't make standard PT sexy, right? It's not. We're not talking about the latest new craze or what it's. So what I see a lot of now from all the ads and all the Facebook ads I see running, and I see other clinics posting stuff up, and I'm watching it. There's two things that I see. One thing, they're showing a boring old exercise, right? With a clinic in the background that's not even clean, that looks just in jumbles. And I'm like, what are we doing, guys? It's something I call being tone deaf, by the way. And we'll touch base on being tone deaf. And the second thing is they're not even connecting with who they're speaking to, right? They're just putting out information. Right? They're just saying, you know what? They're saying, you know what? My boss told me that I need to shoot a video or create a video. And I'm going to do it because he told me to do it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and then you're like, all right, that's great. And then they put this out, but I'm like, is it actually hurting you? Right? That might actually be hurting you. And unfortunately, if you just took 10 minutes to think it through before you just picked it up and said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And it doesn't have to be perfect at what you say, but if you get a little bit there, each time you do it, it gets better. And first time I shot video, I was horrible. If you pull up some of my old videos back in 2009, you're like, dude, miserable, but you just get better over time. And I think that's kind of the takeaway. It's really just knowing what that messaging is, what the key is, right? You have to just say, okay, who are we talking to?
Yeah. How do you connect?
Who are we talking to? How do we make it interesting, right? So we just want to simplify things, right? The problem we also see is they make it too complex. We're talking about a stretch, and they made the stretch so complex because they're talking about every muscle that's attached, when realistically we should just say, hey, you'll feel better in your lower back with this stretch. Yeah. Give it a shot.
Yeah.
Like 8th grade reading level stuff, right?
I love, we have to dumb it down because I think the therapists want to bring out the models, the hip joint or the shoulder joint and the knee joint, say, this is how it works. When, a lot of times people don't really care. Some people might. And I know for people who are like PTs, we want to know how it works. But I think a majority of the population, I think this is where you're going, is okay, whatever. How does it help my low back? Or does it make me feel better if I do this? And how often do I need to do it? And do you need to take 10 minutes to explain all that? I mean, maybe spend a little bit more time connecting and say, you know what? If you stretch this muscle and you do this thing, it's going to help you feel better. So like you said, kind of dumbing it down and not getting into the specifics so much. Is
And
that
Nathan,
where you're going then?
yeah, and Nathan, let's be honest, right? The practitioners that are hurting right now, that are having a hard time right now, were in-network practitioners that never had to market to get a patient because they had a doctor referral source, right? That fed them patients.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to go outside because they had, you know what, these docs just send me patients. We're good. I'm in network. You know, I see Medicare. I see this. I see everything. So they're coming in. Who would ever think orthopedic surgeons were not allowed to work, right?
Yeah.
Who would ever think that? It's unfathomable to even put that as a risk analysis. That wasn't even on my risk analysis, right?
Sure.
That, hey, docs can't work.
Yeah.
Who would ever think that?
Yeah.
Now, that's the one thing that shut down 97% of the practices out there.
That's right.
Not even the virus. I'm going to tell you right now, they have no other referral source because they were standing on what I call, you know, instead of the three-legged stool, they had one leg on a stool.
Yeah.
You just not that, you know, guess what? COVID knocked that out by taking out your referral source, which are your docs.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, I have nothing. And now if you're scrambling for marketing now and your message isn't clear and you don't know who your patient is because you've been getting your patient from an ortho for all these years or primary care or whoever, and you never had to work to get somebody.
Yeah.
It's the difference of being out of network. We have to work to get them in, right? It's a very different mindset.
You're constantly working on your message.
Constantly. So it's something that we built a muscle to. And again, I told good friends that are in PPS, I've told good friends that I know in the APTA, I'm like, never saw the difference between in and out. I said, guys, we literally have the same problems. We have the same issues, except the fact that the word you're in and I'm out, that's the only difference that shows up, but everything else was identical. And now all these years later, I actually see it. And it was the referral source. That's what we can see. So when we say standard physical therapy, we're talking about guys that never really had to struggle to get people because their clinic always had, they were used to being busy and not productive, right? So they were just used to getting clients coming in. And now, unfortunately, this is where we're at.
And so your marketing is just that. It's focused on the messaging, and the messaging, I'm assuming, is focused on connecting with patients and speaking at their level. So what's your secret sauce? I mean, I know it takes some time, but if you were to say, okay, I market like this, and you see it. I mean, people are spending thousands of dollars on Facebook ads, sending out email campaigns and that kind of stuff. How do they what is your secret sauce for that message and how to make it more concise that you've learned that you're willing to share?
Absolutely. You know, and you know what, Nathan, I didn't realize I actually had this for a different genre of practitioners, but you know what, it'll actually work well for you guys. It's the same thing. If you can go, and at the end of this, if you share a link, it goes to my website / so it's just Dr. Joe Simon / Masterclass. It has a 10-minute video on messaging. So all your listeners just jump in on that. There's no login. There's no opt-in, nothing. I don't want you. I don't want your opt-in. Don't want your email. Don't worry about it. Just log in. You get a free 10-minute on messaging alone. Nice. My gift to you. And it's, go ahead. I mean, just that 10 minutes will just change your mindset on what you have to say. And my only advice for that 10-minute masterclass, I would say, is actually spend 40 minutes doing it. If you don't spend 40 minutes of actually working on that project, you didn't give it enough time, because that's the thinking that will have to go into it to really get something out of it. And that's the huge difference.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing. That's awesome. But, and if people didn't notice, I mentioned it in the bio when we first got started that your PT clinics are out of network. And so obviously your message is different, and every visit has to be showing some kind of value. So you're working at a different pace. And so I can understand what you're talking about, how people are busy but not productive, because the difference between in-network and out-of-network is that you have to really focus on your messaging to get them in the door without and not focusing on the physician referral. And then also, how do you provide value at each visit? And so your messaging is completely different, not only to bring them in, but also engage and maintain and keep those patients or retain those patients in your clinic. Totally different. And so nowadays, are you spending much time on social media platforms, or how are you getting your video message out?
Everywhere. So
Okay.
we
Use
call
them
it like an
all
it's
of the
like
above.
omnipresence, right? It's like
Okay.
wherever you can get it out, you want to get it out. So you don't want to be limited to one platform or another platform. Again, if your audience is sitting on Facebook, then by all means go on
Yeah, on
Facebook. If
Facebook.
your audience is sitting on, Instagram, go to Instagram. But realistically, I can tell you 90% of the practices that I've consulted in my lifetime of consulting, they didn't have a platform that they dedicated time to. They didn't even dedicate money towards marketing. So when we looked
Yeah.
at their budgets and we were like, all right, what do you dedicate towards marketing? It was always between 2 to 5%.
Yeah.
I think one guy was at 6%. And this is probably a good sample size over 100 people over, a few years, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things like, hey, you didn't even break 5% on your budget towards getting. So again, look, the messaging is very simple. If I told somebody, hey, it costs, 25,000 for my services, they're like, whoa, I'm not paying that. That's massively expensive. Yeah. If I say, hey, how about I can, would you invest in if you could get a return of 250,000 in a 12-month period, would you invest in me? And what do you think most people are going to say? They're going to be like 250,000. Absolutely. I want that return.
Yeah, exactly.
But so 25,000 for 250, there's no, brain activity on that. Everyone's like, absolutely. And it's really, even my own messaging changed years ago because I knew the result I could deliver my clients back then. And this was every industry. This was, PT, dentistry, podiatry, and some were easier than others. PT, sometimes, I'm like, hey, depending on the demographic where they were, we were like, hey, it's a little challenging. It might not work. We might have to tweak it a bit. The easiest one I ever had, and I can share this even though it's off topic, was my wife's friend. She was a vascular surgeon, and she was going into the hair plug industry, right? So she goes, Joe, I'm switching into hair plugs because, if you're a vascular surgeon, you deal with like really tiny blood capillaries. So doing plugs, super easy, right? So I'm like, hair's really thin. You could put some plugs in. I get it. So I said, wow, this is going to be like, oh my God, like every guy, look, I'm thinning. My hair is going as we can speak. This is, yeah, exactly. So who wouldn't pay for this, right? Yeah. I put one ad for her that spoke realistically to myself. And I'm going to tell you, she had more leads in a 24-hour period. And look, again, it's the vanity behind it, right? The vanity was what drove the whole thing. Again, physical therapy is not sexy. We're not going to get somebody saying, "Oh my God, I want to go to PT today." This is it.
We're not providing hair plugs and giving sprouting hair.
We're not providing hair plugs, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's that was a takeaway from that. But it's what I've worked with my partners now, and I think your audience will find super helpful. We went on a complete guidance program of just 3 things. We look at even not just my own partners now, the people I'm speaking to now, we went to a concept of pivot, protect, and plan. So I'm like, all right, look, we know this is the new normal. We just got to get used to it. I just had a conversation with a staff PT that I just saw today, and she's like, I'm burnt out. I'm doing telehealth. I'm in this clinic seeing in person. And then I have to do, I have to make sure I monitor, like work on our marketing. She's like, I'm burnt out. And, obviously still got to do notes and authorizations. Hold on, I missed something in my eye. Yep. Authorizations, notes, all these things. And she's just like, how do I keep up with this? And I said, I hate to tell you, but this is the new normal. We will provide as much help and guidance you need, but I don't see it changing anytime soon. Yeah. So when I say practice owners need to pivot, if they haven't done it already, we really have to pivot immediately. Like this is like yesterday. So look, some practices got the PPP money. Some practices got the Medicare money. Some practices got, whatever funds and grants they could get. Some didn't. Some didn't got big goose egg, right? Yeah. I'm one of those guys too. I got a big goose egg. I didn't get it yet. I'm on a waiting list. Yeah. We'll see if it ever rolls in, but look, it's not there. But we've already pivoted. We said, okay, we've taken that time off. We came back when lockdown occurred. We said, okay, we're back, and this is what we're going to work on. So we made that pivot very quick. Now we're in the whole, hey, we protected what we needed to protect. Now we're in the planning stage. We're like, all right, how do we move forward? What we're going to do coming forward, right? And that's kind of the mentality behind how we're going to get through this, and obviously get out of 2020.
Yeah, right. Well, I love how you broke down pivot, protect, and then plan, because this is what I'm worried about is people are going to get that money and go back to the way they were doing things. They're going to take all that money and just say, okay, now I can go back to my safe nest and just sit and do what I did before, instead of taking that money and taking advantage of the opportunity to, like you said, pivot, protect, and plan for a different normal, or take advantage of other opportunities. Look at other opportunities that maybe we're not even into 2020. I mean, look at opportunities. If you want to just kind of consider how you're doing things, go back to, is now a right time for an updated EMR change? Is now a good time to improve your billing program, or outsource your billing if your in-house you're not satisfied with? But even more so, man, bring your PT into the 21st century and do some social media campaign work. Post some videos that are engaging and not just a 20-minute lesson on hamstring stretches, without the models and everything. Start getting engaged and use digital marketing to your advantage. Start using project tools like Slack and Loom and Asana, if you're a little bit bigger, to coordinate things. Start taking advantage of some of these things. Use these programs for policy and procedure manuals. I mean, if you don't have one, now's the time to. That's how that goes into the protect and plan stage that you're talking about, right? So make some pivots, and those pivots become policies, and that protects the things that they don't slide back into what you were doing before, and then plan ahead. You got to reset to the new normal, like you're talking about. But that's going back to your point, though, is I'm worried that people are going to take that money and then just go back to what they were doing before and think that that's okay and that they'll survive, when people are going to change. Things are going to change around them.
Yeah, Nathan, you're 100% correct. If we can share a screen really quick, I want to show you something I just shared with. Let me see if I can connect it. Yep. Let's see if it'll pop up. Trust. Yep. If it works, it'll be amazing.
That'd be great. And with the podcast audience, I'll share what we're seeing.
There we go. All right. So, okay. So the podcast, what happened? We just had it.
I can see a white screen for you.
Oh, there it is. It's back. All right. Really quick, I want to show you something that I did with my partners. And I think, the video is important too, but I'll walk them through in the thing. Think about a Venn diagram of 3 circles, right? Yeah. So you got 3 circles overlapping each other, right? So just think Mickey Mouse, big ears, but the big ears are upside down. Let me see if I can. It's not updating. Can you see that, Nathan?
I can see 2 circles.
2 circles. Yeah, it's over there. All right, let me see if I can get it this way then. Yep, I got it. Okay, we're gonna do it that way. The top part didn't show. Okay. So obviously, I talked about the pivot, protect, plan. Yeah. Right. Those and if we really, when I went through this risk analysis with them, I really said to them, I said, if we really think about it, guys, what do all practice owners want, right? So we say, look, most practice owners I know, they want freedom, right? They're like, hey, look, I'm kind of tired of the rat race. I want to just, I want to work. I want to do my own thing. And we all know that. Yeah. The majority of them want meaning. They want to say that, hey, look, I'm a great practitioner. I'm doing something that's valuable for my community, right? Like I'm really helping my community. Yeah. And I apologize that this is a little bit off, but
that's all right.
And the last part, obviously, which I'm a big proponent of, is you need profit, right? You need to be making money. Yes. If you don't make money, right? If you don't make money, then we have an issue.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere, and that's the thing. And obviously, the last part is just I put an S there because S is for scaling or growth or whatever it is that you want to kind of that you kind of figure out. But this is what I kind of, that I'm kind of going with everyone right now is, hey, we have the pivot, we have the protect, and we're trying to have the plan, because these are the pieces of it, right? So is the pivot, and we're going to take this little line off, is that pivot marketing, right? Are you pivoting your whole company by learning how to market, right? Saying, okay, let me figure out how to market my company. Is that pivot to say, hey, listen, I need to work with somebody else, or, or I'm going to be closing my doors. Would that be a merge? Would you merge with somebody and say, all right, I got to go with somebody else, and maybe somebody else could guide me through this?
Exactly.
Obviously the pivot at the end, if you guys could see that, is you exit, right? You're like, hey, I'm done with this. I don't want to go through this again. And I have a business partner that went through 2012 with me, and she was just like, I don't know if I can go through this rodeo again. What do you think? And, like, she's like, I'm in it if you're in it. And I said, look, I'm definitely in it. I'm only in my 40s. I'm going to push through. Now, don't get me wrong. If I was closer to my 50s, I might not have gone through this time, because I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
I put enough away. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But my mentality is, I got to push, I got to conquer, I got to win. And I have a good mantra that I'll share at the end. But it's something that I shared with her and said, we got this. We can do this. But these are some options that I've been kind of sharing with that. And when we talk about exit, right, it's not like, hey, I'm going to get a chunk of money and get out. Unlike other bigger box, the big franchises or the big guys that come along and buy you out. When I work with practice owners, I look at them and I say, hey, exit's one thing, money's one thing, but what are you going to do after?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with your knowledge? Are you just going to retire? Are you just going to say, okay, I'm just going to sit down and fish every day? I'm like, that's not you.
Yeah.
So how do we package your IP? You have so much that you can share with everyone out there. And look, that you might do it on a small scale where you say, hey, look, I'm just going to share it with the younger generation of PTs coming up, or I'm going to share it with my community. I'm going to set something up in the community where they can come to me. Or you can go look at some PTs that I know, and we both know in our space, they sold their practice and they got into the consulting game. They went big. They said, hey, look, I want to reach out to everyone. I want to help as many practice owners as I can. So there's a lot of ways to exit a business that could work as a pivot for them, right? But packaging that IP is something that when I come in, I'm like, listen, this is what's different about me. This is what we're going to do, right? It's an exit is one thing. You get the money, I get you. Everybody wants money to say, hey, my baby is worth something, right? That's what we all value our practices. It's worth something. But we want to be able to say, like, okay, what can you do with your time? Right. And that's it. And that's where the protection response comes, right? Because your protect is like, is your practice protected? Right. Are your people protected? Because I'll be honest with you right now. I've never purchased a practice if the people were not 100% behind with what they were doing. If I saw a practice, no matter how great a deal I was going to get, I've walked away from deals when I found out the culture was toxic. I was like, this is a time bomb. No matter how much money they were making, they were printing money. But if the culture was toxic, it's not worth it. So when I say, hey, we want to protect your people, we're really talking about culture, right? So that's what we always want to protect. Is your culture really protected? And that's huge, right? So again, the freedom and money part, that's where we start planning, right? And that's what starts going through. And that plan could be numbers of things. It could be anything. Sometimes there's too many things that you want to list out. But at this point in time, most people, I think the biggest thing they're trying to say is they're trying to survive, right? They're like, hey, how do I survive? How do I get through this? How do I, most of it is just like to say, hey, I did it. And I completely get it, right? Because as a business owner, you want to be able to say, yeah, we were able to get through this with the funding, without the funding. Look, I have nothing against the funding. I applied myself. Somebody gives you free money, take it. Sure. I'm right there with you. Sure. But it's one of those things. Look, I have a personal belief. The government is not meant to save us. I just don't believe it. They give the money, great, but I don't believe they're meant to save us. And, my business partners, a couple of months back, would get on my case when I kept telling them, guys, we need to have 6 months worth of dry powder. We need 6 months. We need 6 months. And they would get on my case saying, Joe, calm down. The economy's great. We can take this money. We can spend it. I had one partner take out money and pay down his entire house. Right. So I'm like, that's a couple of $100,000 that just disappeared. Right. I'm I'm like, hey, but good thing we had 3 months worth of dry powder. We didn't have 6, but we had 3 on that practice. But it's one of those things that we look at it at this point in time, that's what surviving means at this time. And look, for the guys that got to see the video and see the Venn diagram, you really get a sense of where we kind of go with this entire process and how we kind of look at it. And look, when we do a risk analysis, I'm really trying to break it down to say, okay, what are all the risks we got to take, even with a current practice? 2021, right? We have to look at all that. And now these days, our risks are elevated through the roof, right?
Exactly.
But I'm an optimist, Nathan. I'm going to tell you right now, I think we have more opportunity now
Mm-hmm.
as physical therapists. And I just want to throw out one golden nugget out there to everyone listening. Look at one thing. Personal training, massage industries are shut down, but we're still open, right? So that's a lot of clients that don't have access to two of the things that we are legally that we can do. It's in our practice act. We can do exercises with people, and we can do soft tissue with people.
Yep.
As safe as you have to be. But think about all the two industries, and unfortunately, right? I don't want to beat up on personal trainers. I have a lot of great friends that are personal trainers. Some of them are watching me on Facebook Live right now.
There you go.
Love you guys, but it is what it is, right?
You can't do it.
Can't do it. So that's a golden nugget. I want everyone to kind of use that, right? Run with that. There's two industries that we have access to right now. What can you do in your community today?
Nice. Well, the Venn diagram I thought was awesome because there was the pivot, protect, and plan, and in the middle then was, if people didn't get to see it, was scalability. And as those overlap, then you're able to scale. And so as you provide freedom, profits, and meaning, you're able to really do something. And as you expanded that out even more, as it applies to today, first is the need to survive. Market is the huge takeaway when on the pivoting. How are you going to market when you don't have physician referral sources and you're relying on elective surgeries? And then the third thing was culture. What a great opportunity to define your culture, man, and revamp it. Even if you thought it was good, there's an opportunity now to make it what you want and make it exactly what you want, and plan accordingly to keep it there. But those three things are what we're working on right now: survivability, marketing, and people. How do we handle that, and who do we keep around, and who do we trust going forward? And if we can maintain those things, then if we can survive, market appropriately, keep the right people, and scalability is inevitable.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't have said it better. That's 100% right on the money. Like, we know that the opportunities, like I said, we're in a crisis, but if we look at the opportunity that's before us, even if you said, hey, look, I am in the Midwest, I am not being affected at all, but we have a shutdown, but how do you take that opportunity right now? And if you're look, in God's good graces, if you're in a place where you're really not affected by this, and I've spoken to other business owners that, and I get it. If you don't see it, you don't believe it kind of deal. We're in the epicenter. I have close friends. I have, people that have gotten sick. I have family friends that have passed, and you see it firsthand. Now, look, there's a lot of conspiracy theory out there and everything, but at the end of the day, people are people. Somebody gets sick, you kind of just say, okay, look, they got sick. How do we make sure no one else gets sick, right? And I'm part of everything, right? I'm like, hey, look, if you get sick, hopefully you have a calm symptoms and you want to have some kind of immunity to it, and that's what we're all looking for. But we don't know. So if we just look at it from a business point of view, what can we do to move forward? And I can share, if like when you guys go to the website, you'll see what I have been doing the last couple of years. Have been just really working with business owners to see if they want to start a practice or sell a practice, right? Because I knew a lot of PTs at a certain point that were like, hey, Joe, I'm tired of working for somebody else. I'd like to start a practice. Yeah. All right. And like, hey, we can do that. There's a way to do that. And there's a proper steps to take for that.
Yeah.
At this point in time, I've had that question recently. It was actually popped up on Facebook. That's why I wanted to address it. They asked, is this a good time to start a practice? It's one of those things. Like,
maybe
you look at it with the glass half full or the glass half empty.
That's right.
I mean,
if you can learn to survive during this time, it's going to be super easy for you to start.
The rest of it will be cake.
It'll be cake.
You can get through this.
Oh, yeah.
That's my advice to you on Facebook Live. You can get through this. This is nothing. Like, next year it'll be. But that's the thinking. Like, the thinking is, hey, can you start? And look, you won't have the overhead that we have currently, right? With our practices, that you have overhead.
Yeah.
Starting as a one-man show, you're not going to have that.
Yeah.
And have backing, hey, that's even better. If you have knowledge base, that's even better. If you have, it's always better. But if you don't have that, if you're like, hey, I want to just start and do this today because I graduated, because we have a lot of graduates that are like, what do? I can't get a job. Might as well just start. Roll the dice. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Do you need experience? Absolutely. But it's, there's nothing wrong with, rolling the dice, seeing if you can do it, obviously do it in a safe way. But I have confidence in a lot of our brethren out there in PT,
Yeah. No, I mean, the people who are taking advantage of this opportunity are the ones that are going to be able to scale and do more and look at it as an opportunity. There are plenty of clinics out there that are hurting, that are in that position that they might want to bow out. They're like, okay, I was burned out already. Now I'm really burned out and I don't want to put the effort into it. Like you said, I'm turning 50 this year. I don't really want to start a clinic if I had to all over again.
No,
and so,
you definitely don't want to do that, and that's the tough part about it, right? Because you look at it like, how long can you push through, especially when these cycles happen. And look, like I said, on a risk analysis, we were never thought that, hey, orthos couldn't work, and you have referral sources out the window.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I think the new norm is going to change what standard PT is, and it might be a hybrid model, right? Everything I'm pushing towards now is a hybrid model of we have access to telehealth. Great. Is that a great marketing tool? Like, even if everything opens up and it's perfectly fine, but could you use telehealth as the best marketing tool ever to get people to experience what you do and to like you and trust you, and then say, hey, I want to come into your clinic. So we're leveraging it as a marketing tool. I mean, at this point, we know we'll eventually be open, but how many people can we see? Like restaurants, we won't be able to see the numbers that would make some of those, I don't want to call them mills, but some of those practices profitable, right? And I have nothing against anybody's business model. If that's how you make money, that's how you do it. I have nothing against it. I'm a business guy myself, so I look at it.
Sure.
But if you can't do that, what are you going to do? Yeah. Right? If you can't see that many people per hour, or if you tell me, hey, my population is 40% Medicare.
Yeah, now what?
30% Medicare, it's gone, right? It's a tough thing. So your messaging, and like I said, check it out. And obviously Nathan will put a link in, but that will definitely help just to change your messaging. It's a great time to pivot. And I think it's a starting point.
Great time to pivot. And just to reiterate the masterclass that you offered, drjoesimon.com/masterclass. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So to really do some marketing or messaging for your marketing. And I guess drjoesimon.com is where they can learn more about you as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And look, at these days, guys, I don't do the consulting or coaching anymore, but if you find me on LinkedIn, which is just Dr. Joe Simon, you find me on LinkedIn, I have messages all day long that I do get back to. It takes me probably a day or two, but I look, to a certain extent, I'm in quarantine too, right? I still go to the clinics that I can reach. I can still get to some of them, but the rest of the time I'm doing, second grade math. So it's a challenge for me. The reason I became a PT is because I couldn't do math, but that's where I am right now.
All of us have to chip in on the homeschooling, man. It's not easy. But that's awesome.
Nathan, I'm going to share a little mantra that I shared with my staff. And I think it's something that if everyone could take away, action alleviates anxiety for everyone. We have a ton of that. And I think that's something we have to just say that every day. Action alleviates anxiety. Rethink and reframe, right? And that's super important, to rethink and reframe exactly what you're doing, and find new solutions in what you already have. So if you look at your current assets, if you have gym equipment, you have, I'm going to go back to the old school e-stim and ultrasound machines. Yeah. If you have people, if you have whatever you have, how can you leverage just that? How can you rethink and reframe your assets?
How can
you don't think all is lost? And even if you laid everyone off and it's just you, that's fine. How can you leverage what you got? My favorite, never negotiate with your inner bitch. I have one. We all have one. I negotiate with that son of a bitch every day. I'm telling you, it's just like, we're going to do this. Right. No, we can't do it. No, we're going to do it.
That's right. And
don't negotiate, man.
Every day.
You guys can just remember those 4 things. I guarantee you will push forward out of this crisis.
You know what? One that I saw recently that pertains is also, you can either create or you can complain, but you can't do both.
So true. That is that's perfect, right?
Yeah.
You can do both. You got to do. And look, unfortunately, we have some in the industry that they're stuck. They're not moving. Yeah. And if you're out there and you're like, hey, look, I'm stuck, even if they want to have a conversation, I'm open to those conversations.
Totally.
If you're looking at like, I want to get out and exit, I'll happy to have those conversations.
Yeah.
If you're, and again, when I say conversations, that's all it's going to be, because I'm not, there's no hard sale. There's no like, hey, we're going to buy you up today and we're going to do none of that. My goal for everyone that I speak to now and where we are is, can I help? Because look, I'm a firm believer, in sending the elevator back down. I started back there and I had to struggle to make my way up. And, along the way, a lot of people helped. And I think that's, and they were consultants myself. I had coaching myself, but people helped. And I think that's what I can offer everyone out there is like, listen, I'm more than happy to send the elevator back down, in any way that I can. And if it's somebody that says, look, I'm having that tough time, how do we get through? Do I need the funding? Do I need your advice? Do I need to merge? All that stuff is okay to have a conversation, and we can just start from there, and it's one step at a time, baby steps.
That's right. Yep. And people have to reach out. I mean, whether it's, there are so many more resources nowadays that there were back in 2012, 2008, when you and I were, owning our practices and whatnot and running our practices and treating full time. There's so many more resources now that if people aren't at least reaching out to coaches and consultants and options and opportunities like yourself, like me, any of the coaches that I've had on the podcast, you're doing yourself a disservice. At this time, any of us will have a conversation with you to talk to you about your business and try to help you out as much as possible. And so if people aren't reaching out at this time, then they're just doing themselves a disservice. There's so many resources. There's so many people who are willing to help without any sale going on. I mean, I'll talk to anybody about their business anytime, and it's fun for me. And I have people say like, dude, why are you talking to me? I'm not paying you to be my coach. And I'm like, dude, I love networking. I love talking business. And so if I can network and talk business, I almost feel like I don't have to get paid. That's okay. So I want my listeners to understand that they need to reach out to somebody, anybody. Reach out to Joe, reach out to me. If I don't have somebody, I'll refer them to Joe, or if I can't help you, I'll refer people to Joe or Jamie or whoever. And same with Joe. If Joe can't help you, he'll refer you to me or to Sturdy McKee, or take your pick of anybody. So there's opportunities out there. I just want, as we're wrapping up, I just want to highly encourage our listeners and watchers to make sure they're reaching out to people and getting support.
Yeah, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head. Look, we have a lot of solid coaches in the PT industry. And look, there's some that I don't 100% agree with, but again, I think everyone needs to go through a learning curve of some sort, right? I put up a post on Facebook, and I want to be respectful of time, but I'll share this really quick. I put up a post saying, you know what are the coaches and consultants doing at this point when we're hitting this crisis? And that post got the most responses. And one guy says, oh, who are you referring to? I said, I don't need to call them out by name, but I just want people to realize the people that are going through it, the people that are working through it, the people that are giving you a resource, a lifeline, without asking for anything in return, those are the guys you want to go to, right? Those are the guys that are going to say, hey, listen, if they did the work, they got a solution, they're pushing forward because either they're in it or out of it. I have no, I don't agree or disagree if they own or don't have a clinic. That doesn't bother. If you're a good coach, you don't have to be a good basketball player, right? Like it's one of those things. So it's one of the, and it's very important. I think seeking help at this point in time, even if it's just a conversation, is is so valuable. And I think
necessary.
That's the takeaway.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, Joe, thanks for your time. They can see you at drjoesimon.com, I assume. Is there any other avenue or way they can get in touch with you if they want?
That's the main thing. Otherwise, I'm highly active on LinkedIn. Just go on LinkedIn, just type in Dr. Joe Simon. You'll see this mug on there with shaving and without a haircut these days. But we're working on it, guys. We're just waiting. I know you guys have your barbers already open, but I'm waiting for that day, man.
That's great. Well, good luck with the second grade math, and keep your sanity, man.
I'm trying, buddy. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your time, man. We'll see you.
You got it.